Hello friends, the article which we are analyzing today is published on Hindu, July 16th, 2020. The title of the article is China's Post-COVID Aggression is Reshaping Asia. It is written by Lindsay W. Ford and Julian Gewirtz. And Lindsay W. Ford is a David M. Robertson Fellow at the Brookings Institute, and Julian Gewirtz is an academic scholar at Howard University's Weatherhead Center for International Affairs. So, this article is written in the context of Chinese aggression not only with India but of its other neighbors, and particularly Chinese aggression at South China Sea. So, what author is saying basically here in this article, that this Chinese aggression has got some pattern. It is not a aberration, but China is doing intentionally this kind of aggression because now China is becoming more confident of its military and economic capacity, and China is also thinking that US is not playing a leadership role any longer. So China is filling that power vacuum. For that reason, we see that to shape international discourse or to create its own hegemony, Chinese aggression we are seeing all around. So in that context, author is analyzing what are the options its neighbors are having. So in that scenario, we see that all neighboring country and India including are trying to push back Chinese aggression. And in that context, what are the roles US should play so that this Chinese aggression can be handled? So this article is talking about all these things. So we'll see the first. This article is mapped as per my model, and here we see in the background the Chinese geopolitical confrontation with a growing array of its neighbors, and Chinese aggression at LAC with India, and in South China Sea, the kind of confrontation going on. So first, we'll start with the Chinese aggression. So we all know that how China tried to encroach Indian land at LAC, and the activity for last many months we got occupied with that issue only. So here this is one example of Chinese aggression near to related to its with its neighboring country, and the same thing we are seeing in South China Sea. And with Australia also, Chinese confrontation is clear because Australia is demanding accountability and a responsibility, and particularly how this COVID virus originated and how it spread, and Chinese whitewashing of uh, this basically for this COVID related Chinese role, they are trying to China is trying to whitewash. So with that issue, there is a growing confrontation with Australia, and we are all aware what China is doing in Hong Kong, and same thing happened in the cyberspace also, because using its vast cyber capacity, China is bullying other country. For that reason, here in the article, a kind of solidarity is being built between Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Southeast Asian country online to fight this cyberbullying of China. What author is saying that this all these Chinese action are not an aberration but a part of growing pattern as it become more confident, as China become more confident of its growing economic and military power, and the receding global role of US. So this whole Chinese aggression in and around its neighborhood is a pattern, growing pattern. And why China is doing? Because China is increasingly becoming more confident of its economic and military prowess, and at the same time it is seeing that US is withdrawing itself from global leadership role. So this is giving a space to China to play a hegemonic role. So we see that China is having a dispute with not only with India but related to South China Sea. It is having a dispute with other South Asian countries, and with Australia related to COVID, and Hong Kong. It is again trying to change the law and trying to absorb Hong Kong in its own political system. And the same thing we are seeing is spilling over to cyberspace also. So for this Chinese sudden aggression, we are seeing a pushback coming from neighboring countries, particularly southeastern countries. And in that direction, for cases for South China Sea, we see a strong statement from Asian country has come, because this is the first thing we are seeing. ASEAN has taken a such kind of stand and issued such a strong statement. There they have insisted that maritime dispute must be resolved in accordance with the UN Law of Sea Treaty. Similarly, we have seen that how India fought back at LAC. The approach of China that to push India militarily was not succeeded, and they have to go back because India did not allow them to militarily alter the position or status quo at LAC. And for that reason, to fight this Chinese aggression, there is a call for pan-Asian solidarity to fight all form of authoritarianism. So this situation, this aggression of China to fight back, there is a call for to have a solidarity of all pan-Asian country, so that Chinese aggression or Chinese hegemonic effort can be defeated. And in that line, we see that quadrilateral, bilateral dialogues among Australia, India, Japan, and US are going on. These are all like-minded democratic countries, and in them, this either through Quad or through bilateral forum, they are charting out response to deal with Chinese aggression. So this is the same thing happening with other country also. So there is a multilateral coordination happening, which is working in many directions to fight online disinformation. And this multilateral coordination is also making an effort to link like-minded economy, political system, democratic countries, and supply chain and investment. The reason why China has gone to that level economically, because of Chinese position in global supply chain, and this has caused the dependency of all countries on Chinese supply chain. So that is the reason, that dependency is the reason why China is able to do such kind of thing. So to deal with that, it is important that one country to reduce over reliance on China, and decouple economically with China, so that China should not use strategic advantage of that thing. And author also analyzed the role of US. So for that reason, author analyzes the recent policy decision and statement of President Trump, which it consider is a wrong policy and done at bad time, because the recent US decision of withdrawing itself from WHO, which it has brought into the conflict with Australia, because Australia is pushing WHO to inquire the cause and spread of COVID-19, which is basically to implicate China and Chinese whitewashing of their role. So if USA is withdrawing, then this way it is weakening the WHO, and this way it is hampering the goal of Australia. And similarly, we see that president decision of suspending worker visa, it is also affecting India, and the whole US administration dealing with China is framed in Cold War setting. Means it is based on binary approach, US against China. But allies, US allies are not compatible with this binary approach, because they have a lot of dealing with China at bilateral level, which they don't want to jeopardize. And because of this flickering policy of US, they also cannot completely rely on USA. So what author is saying, that old Cold War mindset of binary approach will not work in dealing with China, because China is having a huge connectivity and trade, also bilateral trade with other countries. So no country will jeopardize that thing. So that format will not work. But at the same time, Chinese neighbors are asserting themselves, and they want a strategic space also. So what US should do, US should, rather than creating this Cold War binary frame, US should support rather than attempt to commandeer a regional effort to build a less China-centric future for Indo-Pacific. So what author is suggesting, that to deal with China, US should not follow the binary approach what it did at the time of Cold War. Rather, it should support or enable the neighboring country who is getting more assertive with respect to China, so that they get more confident and they get support also to deal with China on equal footing. That is the way US will be able to harness the support of other country. Keep making China or boycotting China will not work, because they have a huge relationship, trade relationship with China, which cannot be undone in short term. So that is a good article. It basically analyzed the Chinese aggression in terms of US perspective, and it has a good lesson for India also, because India also has to build up its own defense against China, not exactly follow the US dictum, but at bilateral level it should be confident and strong enough to deal with China. So this concludes the analysis of first article. The second article which I am analyzing is India should believe in the EU, European Union, and it is written by Stefania Beglia, and it is again published on Hindu July 16th. So this article analyzed the Indo-EU European Union relationship and what are the challenges, what are the potential in India-EU relationship. So author says that in the relationship between India and European Union, there is a lot of commonalities, because both EU and India is seeking strategic autonomy, both want to work to mitigate climate change, and both want to diversify their strategic value chain, global supply chain. So related to coming to the strategic autonomy, we see that both EU and India want stronger cooperation with like-minded democratic power. Means the political governance system with democracy, with like-mindedness, they want to create a kind of alliance. This is also required to deal with increasingly Chinese aggression. And for that reason, India should use its geopolitical advantage and of being a democratic polity to harness the support it has for this region. And the same thing for climate change, EU has a commitment to make that region of EU carbon emission neutral by 2050. For that purpose, India can become a partner of EU, and EU also has a intention of diversifying strategic value chain. So with the cooperation, enhanced business cooperation with India, EU will be able to diversify their strategic value chain along with India also and reduce their economic dependency on China. So if we analyze that EU and India, basically what are the trades happening in economic term, so we see that EU is the largest trading partner of India and biggest foreign investor. So in 2018, almost 67.7 billion worth of euro, 67.7 billion worth euro of investment made by EU, which is almost 22% of total FDI inflow. But author says that this is not as per the potential what India has, because if you compare the EU investment in China at the same time period, that is around euro 175.3 billion. So you can see that how much China is ahead in terms of investment from European Union side. So there is a lot of scope in that direction. So what are the challenges why this relationship is not flourishing to that level? So for that reason, the main challenge is this stagnated negotiation on free trade agreement. Because of various reason, the negotiation on free trade agreement is not moving up. And as per some study, if that negotiation is materialized and treaty is made, then there will be huge trade benefit on both sides. So the potential impact of EU-India trade agreement at between euro 8 billion and 8.5 billion gain from increased trade for both sides, with a more significant increase of trade gain likely to flow India. The study also referred to additional potential gain from enhanced coordination on the provision of global public good such as environmental standard. So if this problem, this negotiation is resolved through negotiation, if we reach to free trade agreement, there is a huge potential for trade between EU and India, which will benefit India and EU both. So that is the way future for EU and India relationship is there. And this concludes the analysis of second article also. And I hope these analysis will help to improve your understanding. Thank you.